The wine glass slipped from my fingers, shattering across the marble floor of Laurent's, sending crimson droplets across my new heels like blood-spatter. David's laugh cut through the private dining room, sharp and cruel as the broken crystal at my feet. "Oh God, Emma, seriously?" He didn't even look at me, just kept talking to his colleagues. "Can someone get my wife a sippy cup?" The waiter rushed over with a cloth, his eyes full of pity I didn't want to see. I forced myself to smile and ordered another bottle for our table of 14 David's parents, his MBA classmates, and a few of his professors from Wharton sat around the massive table, all celebrating his graduation with highest honors. My name is Emma Richardson, and I'm 36 years old. For the past 4 years, I've worked as a teacher while my husband David pursued his business degree at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm the one who kept our home running, paid the bills with my salary, and listened to him talk about market strategies and corporate finance every single night while I graded papers until midnight. Tonight was supposed to celebrate us both, the sacrifices we'd made together. "Ladies and gentlemen," David's father, Robert Mitchell II, stood with his Scotch glass raised. His silver hair gleamed under the chandelier as he surveyed the table with those calculating eyes that had judged me lacking since the day I met his son. "I want to propose a toast to my brilliant son, David." Everyone lifted their glasses. I raised mine, watching the light catch the ruby liquid like a bad omen. "David has accomplished something truly extraordinary," Robert continued, his corporate executive voice filling the room. "Despite the burden of being married during his MBA program, he's graduated top of his class. He's already received multiple offers from Fortune 500 companies, including a position at Goldman Sachs, starting at $200,000 a year." My stomach dropped. This was the first I'd heard of any job offers. David hadn't mentioned Goldman Sachs once. Now, I know some people thought it was foolish for David to stay married during business school. Robert's eyes found mine across the table, especially to someone without an advanced degree. But sometimes our mistakes teach us the most valuable lessons. The table went silent. David's mother, Catherine, pressed her napkin to her lips to hide what I knew was a smile. His classmates, Brandon, Ashley, and Jordan, suddenly became fascinated with their entrees. "Dad," David said, but he was grinning. "I'm simply saying, son, that now you'll have the resources to make better decisions. A man of your caliber needs a partner who matches his ambitions." The heat rose in my chest, that familiar burn of humiliation I'd learned to swallow over the past 4 years. But I kept quiet. Speaking up at these dinners only made things worse. "Actually," David said, standing with his own glass, "I'd like to say something too." My heart sank. I knew that tone. "I want to thank everyone who supported me through this journey, my parents who invested in my future, my professors, especially Professor Chen, who pushed me to exceed even my own expectations." He nodded at an elegant woman in her 50s, sitting at the end of the table, Dr. Victoria Chen, I realized, his strategic management professor and apparently his mentor at Goldman Sachs. And of course, my wife Emma. He turned to me with that practiced smile he used in presentations. "Everyone, meet my wife. No MBA, no real career trajectory, just coasting along on her teacher's salary while waiting for me to support her properly." The table erupted in nervous laughter. Ashley actually choked on her wine. Brandon covered his mouth with his napkin, his shoulders shaking. Even the sommelier, who was opening another bottle nearby, paused to stare. "David," I said quietly. "What? I'm just being honest, honey. You've been so supportive, so patient. Most women would feel threatened having a husband who's more educated and successful, but not you. You're content to stay in your lane." More laughter. Professor Chen was watching me with obvious amusement, like I was a case study in poor life choices. "You know what's funny?" David continued, really enjoying himself now. Emma thinks she's going to benefit from all my hard work, like we're some kind of team. But I've got news for you, sweetheart. The days of me being held back by mediocrity are over. The entire restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were craning their necks to watch. The humiliation was complete, total, suffocating. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood. Every eye in the room was on me. David was still smiling, waiting for me to slink away like a scolded child. Instead, I picked up my wine glass and held it high. You know what, David? You're absolutely right. This is definitely going to be a night to remember. I looked around the table, making eye contact with each person who had laughed. I want everyone here to remember this moment. Remember what you heard tonight. Remember who said what. David's smile faltered because this is the last time any of you will make me the joke. I drained my wine in one swallow and set the glass down gently. Enjoy your celebration, everyone. You've earned it. I walked out of Laurent's with my head high and my spine straight. Behind me, I could hear the confused buzz of conversation starting up. Let them wonder. Let them talk. They'd understand soon enough. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. The rain came down hard as I walked through downtown Philadelphia, soaking through my dress. I didn't care. My face was burning, but the cold water felt good against my skin. 4 years. 4 damn years I'd supported that man. I'd worked extra tutoring sessions to help pay for his textbooks. I'd packed his lunches every morning before my own teaching day started. I'd listened to him rehearse presentations until 3 a.m. I'd been his cheerleader, his editor, his unpaid assistant, and this was my reward. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Where did you go? You're embarrassing me in front of important people. I almost laughed. I was embarrassing him. Another text appeared. Stop being dramatic and come back. We need to discuss the tuition reimbursement. That stopped me cold. I stood on Market Street, rain streaming down my face, staring at those words. The tuition reimbursement. Here's something David's fancy MBA friends didn't know. His parents had cut him off financially after his first year, claiming they wanted him to learn financial responsibility. Since then, I'd been covering his tuition through a program at my school. Every semester, I'd take on extra classes and tutoring to generate the $15,000 needed. The final payment, the one that would actually release his diploma and official transcripts to Goldman Sachs, was due next week. $15,000 sitting in our joint savings account, waiting to be transferred to Penn. I pulled out my phone and opened our banking app. With a few quick taps, I transferred the money from our joint account into my personal account that I'd kept from before our marriage. Then I removed David's access to our shared credit cards and notified the bank to freeze any joint accounts. If he wanted independence so badly, he could have it. My phone started ringing immediately. David's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message. Emma, what the hell? Everyone's asking where you went. You're making me look bad in front of Professor Chen and the Goldman Sachs recruiters. Just get back here and act like an adult for once. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. The rain continued as I walked to my apartment in Northern Liberties. It wasn't much, just a 1-bedroom I'd kept throughout our marriage as my personal sanctuary, though I'd never thought I'd actually need to use it this way. Turns out my instincts were better than I'd given them credit for. I poured myself bourbon, something David would have mocked as unsophisticated, and sat down at my computer. Time to do what I did best, research and documentation. David thought I was just a simple elementary school teacher who made bulletin boards and graded spelling tests. He had no idea what I was actually capable of. 6 years as an investigative journalist before switching to teaching had taught me how to find information. My current hobby of digital archiving had taught me even more. I started with David's email account. We'd shared passwords for everything during our marriage for transparency, he'd said. Funny how that transparency only went one way. It took me about 15 minutes to find what I needed. Email after email between David and Professor Victoria Chen, dating back 10 months. At first, they discussed coursework and career strategy, but by the 4th month, everything had changed. I can't stop thinking about yesterday in your office. My wife doesn't challenge me intellectually the way you do. I've never met anyone who understands my ambitions like you do. I kept reading, my anger crystallizing into something cold and sharp. They'd been planning this for months. The Goldman Sachs position at her recommendation, the apartment in Rittenhouse Square his parents had supposedly bought for him, even tonight's public humiliation. It was all designed to push me out cleanly. The final email, sent just that morning, made everything crystal clear. Tonight's the night. Victoria. After dinner, I'm making it clear to Emma that our marriage is finished. My parents are already prepared with the divorce attorney. They never approved of her anyway. By next week, I'll be officially single and we can be together openly. I can't wait to start our life together in New York. I leaned back in my chair and finished my bourbon. So that was the plan. David would humiliate me publicly, serve divorce papers, and walk away with his MBA, his prestigious job, and his professor girlfriend. There was just one problem with their plan. I picked up my phone and called Penn's bursar office. "Hello, this is Emma Richardson. I need to cancel a tuition payment scheduled for next week, my husband, David Mitchell's final semester." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but according to our records, you're not authorized to make changes to Mr. Mitchell's account. Actually, I'm the one who's been making all the payments for the past 3 years. Check your records. Every payment has come from my personal bank account through my school's tuition assistance program." There was a pause while the clerk looked it up. "You're correct, Mrs. Richardson. I see your name on all payments since fall semester 2 years ago. What would you like to do?" "Cancel the automatic payment and put a note on the account that any future payments require my written authorization." "Done. Is there anything else?" "Yes. What happens if the final tuition payment isn't received by the deadline?" "The student's diploma and official transcripts are held until the balance is paid in full. For someone starting a position that requires verification of degree completion, that could be problematic." "How problematic?" "Most major employers, especially financial institutions, require official transcripts before the start date. Without them, job offers can be rescinded." "Good to know. Thank you for your help." I hung up and poured another bourbon. David wanted to play games? Fine, I'd show him what a real strategist looked like. My phone had been buzzing nonstop for 2 hours. 23 missed calls from David, 15 from his mother, and even 4 from Professor Chen herself. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and got to work. The pounding on my door started at 6:30 in the morning. I'd been up all night, but I wasn't tired. I was running on pure clarity and justified anger. "Emma, open this door right now!" David's voice was ragged with panic. "We need to talk immediately." I took my time making coffee, showering, and getting dressed for my teaching day. Let him wait. Let him pound. My neighbors knew what kind of person he really was. They'd heard him yelling at me plenty of times before. When I finally opened the door, David looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfectly styled hair was a mess, and he was still wearing his shoes from last night. Professor Chen was standing behind him, looking uncomfortable in her evening wear. "What the hell is wrong with you?" David pushed past me into my apartment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Good morning to you too, darling Professor Chen." I nodded politely at his girlfriend. "Coffee! Don't you dare act casual." David spun around, his face red. "The university called this morning. They said my tuition payment was canceled. My diploma is being held until the balance is paid." "That's unfortunate," I said, pouring myself a cup. Have you tried calling your parents? I'm sure they'd be happy to help their brilliant son. You know they already spent their budget on my apartment and my car. The $15,000 was supposed to come from you. Was it? I don't remember agreeing to that. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. In fact, I don't remember agreeing to finance your entire degree. Funny how memory works. Professor Chen cleared her throat. Emma, I think there's been a misunderstanding. David tells me you two are having marital difficulties, but surely you don't want to sabotage his career over a personal dispute. I looked up at her with genuine curiosity. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? I don't believe we've been properly introduced. Her face flushed. I'm Victoria Chen. I was David's professor, and now I'm his mentor at Goldman Sachs. Ah, yes, his mentor. How long have you two been working together? David and Victoria exchanged a quick glance, amateur mistake. Since he started his internship last summer, Victoria said carefully. Interesting. And when did you offer him the Goldman Sachs position? Another glance. Just recently. I turned my laptop around so they could see the screen. It displayed David's email inbox with dozens of messages from Victoria clearly visible. According to these emails, you offered him the position back in February. You've also been having an affair with my husband for 10 months. I scrolled down to show them the more explicit messages. Would you like me to read some of these aloud? They're quite detailed about your plans. David went white. How did you access my email? You gave me the password, remember? For transparency. I closed the laptop. Now let's discuss what happens next. You can't blackmail us, Victoria said, but her voice shook. Blackmail? Who mentioned blackmail? I'm simply exercising my right to control my own finances. I stood and walked over to David. He actually stepped back, as if I might hit him, as if I'd ever been the violent one. For 4 years, I supported you. I worked extra hours to fund your education. I cooked your meals and edited your papers and listened to you practice presentations. I glanced at Victoria. Well, most of your presentations. Emma, please, David said, and for the first time he sounded scared instead of angry. I know I said things last night that were out of line. I was excited and nervous and I drank too much. You called me mediocre. You said I was holding you back. You said I had no real career trajectory. I counted off each insult. You said all of this in front of your parents, your friends, and your professors. You made me a joke. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone I was wrong. Will you? Will you call your father right now and tell him you were wrong about me? Will you post on social media that you're sorry for humiliating your wife? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I didn't think so. I walked to the door and opened it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my apartment. You're going to figure out how to pay for your own diploma. And you're going to do it without any help from me. This is insane, Victoria said. You're destroying his future over hurt feelings. His future? What about my future? What about 4 years I spent investing in our marriage while he was planning to leave me for you? I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. Quote, I can't wait to start our life together in New York. End quote. Sent yesterday morning. Victoria's face went pale. She hadn't realized I had documented everything. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you, and don't come back. Emma, wait, David said, tears starting. We can work this out. I love you. No, you don't. You love what I provided. There's a difference. After they left, I sat back down at my computer and continued my work. If David thought last night was humiliating, he had no idea what was coming. I started with his social media presence. David was obsessed with his image, constantly posting about his MBA achievements and his perfect life trajectory. He had over 3,000 followers on LinkedIn, mostly other business students and young professionals. I couldn't access his accounts directly, but I didn't need to. I had something better, screenshots of his emails with Victoria, complete with timestamps and metadata. I created a new anonymous email account and started sending carefully worded messages to some of David's closest contacts. Nothing too obvious, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. Did you know David Mitchell has been having an affair with Professor Chen? I have documentation if you're interested. Within an hour, my phone buzzed with activity. David's friend Brandon called me directly. Emma, I just got the strangest email. Someone saying David's been involved with Professor Chen. That's crazy, right? Is it? I asked. There was a long pause. Emma, what's going on? Why don't you ask David? I'm sure he'll explain everything. I hung up and waited. It didn't take long. David called 25 minutes later, his voice shaking with rage. What did you tell Brandon? He's asking questions about Victoria and me. I didn't tell him anything, but apparently someone else has information to share. This is harassment. I could have you arrested. For what? Telling the truth? Good luck with that, darling. Oh, wait. You're not actually an MBA graduate yet, are you? You still need that diploma. I hung up and went back to work. By the end of the day, David's entire network was buzzing with rumors about his affair. His LinkedIn posts were getting comments like, "Is this true about you and Professor Chen?" and "Your wife deserves better." But I was just getting started. I called Penn's ethics office and filed a formal complaint against Professor Victoria Chen for having an inappropriate relationship with a student under her direct supervision. I included printed copies of their email correspondence as evidence. Then I called the Bar Association ethics hotline and reported that an MBA professor had been exchanging job opportunities for personal favors, which might constitute academic fraud. Finally, I called Goldman Sachs and asked to speak with the head of human resources. This is Margaret Foster. How can I help you? Ms. Foster, my name is Emma Richardson. I'm calling about David Mitchell, who I believe has received an offer from your firm. Yes, Mr. Mitchell is set to start in our corporate strategy division next month. Is there a problem? I thought you should know that Mr. Mitchell and his faculty advisor, Victoria Chen, have been having an extramarital affair. The job offer may have been influenced by this relationship rather than merit. I have documented evidence if you'd like to see it. There was a long silence. I see. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mrs. Richardson. We take ethical violations very seriously. I'm sure you do. Have a good day. I hung up and made myself dinner. It was only 4 o'clock, but I felt like celebrating. My phone rang again. This time it was Victoria, and she sounded desperate. Emma, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Has it? I'm just getting started. Look, I know you're angry, but you're destroying innocent people, David's career, my reputation, my marriage. Your marriage? I laughed. That's rich. You're worried about your marriage while you're destroying mine. My husband doesn't deserve this. He's done nothing wrong. Neither did I, but that didn't stop you from planning to steal my husband. It wasn't like that David and we connected intellectually. These things happen. You're right. These things do happen, and so do consequences. I hung up on her too. That evening, I got a call from my friend Rachel, who worked in Penn's administration. We'd taught together before I moved to my current school. Holy hell, Emma, I just saw the news about David. Channel 6 is doing a story about ethics violations in the business school. They mentioned him and Professor Chen by name. Is that so? I tried to sound surprised. They're talking about inappropriate faculty-student relationships and how they affect academic integrity. This is huge. My phone started ringing off the hook. David, his parents, Victoria, even some of his classmates. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and started planning the next phase. If David wanted to play in the big leagues, I'd show him what real strategy looked like. 3 days after the news story broke, David's world was crumbling. His Goldman Sachs offer had been rescinded pending investigation. Professor Chen had been placed on administrative leave, and David still didn't have his diploma because he couldn't come up with $15,000. I knew all this because his classmate Ashley had called me, unlike Brandon and Jordan, who had immediately distanced themselves from the scandal, Ashley seemed genuinely concerned. "Emma, I know things are bad between you two, but David's really struggling. He's been sleeping in his car for 2 days." "That's unfortunate," I said, feeling less sympathy than I probably should. "Look, I know he was awful to you at that dinner. We all saw it, and it was wrong. But don't you think this is enough? You've made your point." "Have I?" "Because last I checked, he was still planning to divorce me and start his new life with his professor girlfriend." "That's over. Victoria went back to her husband yesterday. Her career is basically finished and she's trying to salvage her marriage. Good for her." "Emma, please, just talk to him. He wants to apologize. He had 4 years to treat me with respect. He chose not to. Now he lives with the consequences." But Ashley's call gave me an idea. If David was really desperate, he might do something stupid. And if he did something stupid, I could document it. I set up my doorbell camera to record continuously and waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 1 a.m, I heard someone trying to pick my lock. I watched on my phone as David fumbled with a credit card, trying to force the door. I let him work at it for about 8 minutes, getting everything on video, before I opened the door from the inside, looking for something. David jumped back. He was wearing dark clothes, which would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. "Emma, I needed to talk to you." At 1 a.m? By breaking into my apartment? I wasn't breaking in. I thought the door was unlocked. I held up my phone, showing him the video I'd just recorded. "Want to try that again?" His face crumpled. "Please, Emma, I need those financial documents. The bank won't give me a loan without proof of income, and all our tax returns are in your name. So ask me for them." "I tried. You won't return my calls." "That's because I have nothing to say to you." He pushed past me into the apartment, and I let him. This was going to be documented. "Where are the files?" he demanded, heading for my desk. "David, you need to leave now." "Not without those documents." He started pulling open drawers, scattering papers everywhere. "I have a right to our financial records." "Actually, you don't. We're not divorced yet, but we're legally separated, and this is my apartment, not ours." He ignored me and kept searching, getting more frantic. "I know you have them somewhere. The tax returns, the bank statements, the investment accounts." "What investment accounts?" He froze. "Nothing, I just meant our savings." But I'd caught the slip. David thought I had money hidden somewhere. He thought this was all about money. "David, look at me." He turned around, his hair a mess, his eyes wild. "This isn't about money, this is about respect. This is about 4 years of marriage where you treated me like I was beneath you. This is about you humiliating me in public because you thought I was too weak to fight back." "I'm sorry. I told you I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for what you did to me." He started crying then, ugly sobs that shook his whole frame. "Please, Emma, I'll do anything. Just help me get my diploma." "Anything?" He nodded eagerly. "Call your father right now. Tell him you were wrong about me. Tell him I was a good wife and you threw it away for an affair." His face went white. "I can't do that." "Why not?" "He'll cut me off completely. He's already furious about the scandal." "So you'll apologize to me in private, but you won't defend me to your family. You'll beg me for money, but you won't admit you were wrong. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." I walked to the door and opened it. "Get out, David, and don't come back. Next time you try to break in, I'm calling the police." He left, but not before grabbing a handful of papers from my desk. I let him take them. They were old utility bills and junk mail, but the fact that he'd stolen from me was now on video. The next morning, I called my lawyer and filed for a restraining order. By noon, David had been served with papers ordering him to stay at least 300 feet away from me and my apartment. That afternoon, I got a call from Victoria Chen. "We need to meet," she said. "No, we don't." Yes, we do. There are things you don't understand about this situation. Enlighten me. Not over the phone. Meet me at the Reading Terminal Market in an hour. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very difficult. Now that was interesting. Are you threatening me, Professor? I'm offering you a chance to end this before it gets worse for everyone. Worse for who? For everyone involved. I thought about it. Fine, 1 hour. But this better be worth my time. The market was crowded with lunchtime shoppers and tourists. I spotted Victoria immediately, sitting at a table in the corner looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. I bought a coffee and sat down across from her. You look terrible, I said. Thanks to you. She leaned forward, her voice low and angry. Do you have any idea what you've done? My husband has filed for divorce. The university is conducting a formal investigation. I'll probably lose my tenure. Good. And David's career is ruined before it even started. He'll never work in finance now. Also good. You're destroying innocent people out of spite. I laughed. Innocent? You've been having an affair with my husband for 10 months. You helped him plan to humiliate me and leave me. How exactly are you innocent? What David and I have is real. We love each other. Then you should have waited until he was divorced to act on it. It's not that simple. These things develop gradually. But you didn't fight very hard, did you? She was quiet, staring at her untouched coffee. What do you want? What do you mean? To make this stop. What do you want? Money? A public apology? What? I want you to understand something, Victoria. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't something you can fix with money or deals. You and David made choices. Now you live with the consequences. Be reasonable. We're all adults here. Are we? Because adults don't have affairs with married students. Adults don't help plan elaborate schemes to humiliate someone's spouse. Adults take responsibility. I stood to leave, but Victoria grabbed my wrist. Sit down. We're not finished. Yes, we are. I said sit down. Her grip tightened. Victoria Chen was a soft academic who probably hadn't been in a physical confrontation since high school. I, on the other hand, had grown up with 3 older brothers and had taken self-defense classes for 6 years. The difference in our capabilities was significant. I looked down at her hand on my wrist, then back at her face. Let go of me. Something in my voice must have registered because she released me immediately. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is. I walked out of the market and headed back to my car. But as I was unlocking the door, I noticed Victoria following me at a distance. Fine. If she wanted to play games, I could play games. I led her on a 20-minute walk through Old City, doubling back, cutting through buildings, taking random turns. By the time I was done, Victoria was breathing hard and looking frustrated. Finally, I ducked into an office building lobby and took the elevator to the 12th floor. Victoria followed, but when the doors opened, I was waiting. What do you think you're doing? I asked. I want to know where you live, where you work, everything about you. Why? Because you're not going to destroy my life without consequences. I stepped closer and she backed against the elevator wall. Victoria, let me explain something. I know where you live. I know where you work. I know your husband's name, your department head's name, your social security number. I know about your research grant irregularities and the plagiarism complaint from 2 years ago that was quietly buried. Her face went white. How do you know about that? Because I'm very good at research. It's what I did before teaching. So if you're thinking about threatening me or my job or my family, you should know I have enough information on you to end your career 10 times over. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of an official university document about the plagiarism investigation. Am I? The elevator doors opened and Victoria stumbled out, her face pale and sweaty. "Stay away from me, Victoria. Stay away from my apartment, my school, and my friends. Because if I see you again, I'm going to assume you're a threat, and I'm going to respond accordingly." The doors closed and I rode back down to the lobby, feeling lighter than I had in days. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Delivered by a process server who looked uncomfortable, I signed for them with a smile and a $10 tip. David was asking for half of everything: the apartment, my car, my retirement account from teaching, even my future pension. He was also asking for alimony, claiming he'd sacrificed his earning potential to maintain our marriage. The irony was breathtaking. I called my lawyer, a fierce woman named Patricia Okonkwo, who specialized in protecting women's assets. "They're asking for a lot," she said after reviewing the papers. "But given the evidence you've provided about the affair, we should be able to fight most of these claims." "I don't want to fight them." "What?" "I want to give him almost everything he's asking for." There was a long pause. "Emma, I don't think you understand. If we agree to these terms, you'll walk away with very little." "That's fine." "It's not fine. You're entitled to protect your assets." "Patricia, trust me, give him what he wants." "Why?" "Because I have a plan." What David didn't know was that I'd been moving money for months, ever since I first suspected something was wrong. The retirement account he was claiming, I'd already rolled most of it into my mother's name legally through a family trust. The investment portfolio he thought existed, it never had. The apartment he wanted half of, it was rented, not owned, and the lease was only in my name. David was about to win a hollow victory, and he didn't even know it. But first I had other business to handle. I drove to Victoria Chen's house in Chestnut Hill, a beautiful Victorian where professors and doctors lived. Her husband, James, was in the front yard raking leaves while their teenage daughter sat on the porch doing homework. I parked across the street and walked over. "Mr. Chen?" He looked up, wariness in his eyes. "Yes?" "My name is Emma Richardson. I think we need to talk." His face hardened. "You're David's wife." "I am, or was. We're getting divorced." "Good for you." He went back to raking, but I could tell he was listening. "I wanted to apologize for what my husband and your wife did to both of us. It's not right." "It's not your fault." "No, but I feel responsible anyway. If I'd paid more attention, maybe I could have stopped it sooner." James looked up at me again, this time with something like understanding. "That's not how affairs work. Trust me, I've been thinking about this for weeks. Victoria made a choice. David made a choice. You and I were just collateral damage. Still, I'm sorry." "Thank you. That means something." I sat down on his front steps, uninvited but not unwelcome. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you going to take her back?" He laughed bitterly. "Are you going to take him back?" "Not a chance." "Then you have your answer." We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching his daughter work on her homework. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "Start over, I guess. I'm a software engineer, so I can support myself and Lily. Victoria will have to pay child support, assuming she still has a job after this." "She might not. The university is taking this seriously." "Good. Maybe the next married man will think twice before getting involved with a professor." I stood to leave, but James called after me. "Emma?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you're planning, make it count." I smiled. "I intend to." That evening, I got a call from Ashley. She sounded upset. "Emma, I need to tell you something about David." "What about him?" "He's been staying with me since the restraining order, and he's not doing well." Define not doing well. "He's drinking heavily. He's not eating. He spends all day sending out resumes and getting rejection letters. He's talked about giving up." "That's unfortunate." "Emma, I'm worried about him, really worried. He mentioned something about how everyone would be better off without him." That got my attention. What exactly did he say? He said maybe he should just disappear. He said he'd ruined everything and there was no way to fix it. I was quiet for a moment, thinking. Ashley, is he seeing anyone? A therapist? I suggested it, but he says he can't afford it. What about his parents? They're not speaking to him. His father says he's brought shame on the family name. And Victoria? She won't return his calls. I think she's trying to save what's left of her own life. So David was completely alone, with no job prospects, no money, no family support, and no future he'd planned. For part of me felt satisfied, but part of me was genuinely concerned. Ashley, if you think he's a danger to himself, you need to call someone, a crisis hotline or his doctor or even emergency services. I don't want to overreact. It's better to overreact than to ignore warning signs. Trust me. Will you talk to him? He still loves you, Emma. I know he does. No, he doesn't. He loves the idea of me as a safety net. There's a difference. Please. Just 5 minutes. Ashley, I can't. The restraining order works both ways. If I contact him, there could be legal consequences. Then what am I supposed to do? Be his friend, get him professional help. But don't expect me to save him. I'm done being David's rescue plan. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment thinking about what Ashley had told me. Was I pushing David too hard? Was I responsible if he hurt himself? Then I remembered that night at Laurent's. I remembered him laughing at me, humiliating me in front of everyone. I remembered the emails with Victoria, the plans to divorce me, the casual cruelty of his betrayal. No, I wasn't responsible for David's choices. He'd made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. But I was almost done with my revenge. Just a few more moves. The next morning, I called Penn's Alumni Foundation. Hello, this is Emma Richardson. I'm calling about establishing a scholarship fund. That's wonderful. What kind of scholarship did you have in mind? I'd like to donate $30,000 to create a scholarship for MBA students who demonstrate academic excellence and ethical behavior. That's very generous, Mrs. Richardson. What would you like the criteria to be? The recipient must maintain a 3.7 GPA, have no disciplinary actions on their record, and write an essay about the importance of integrity in business leadership. Excellent. And what would you like to name it? The David Mitchell Memorial Scholarship for Ethical Excellence in Business. There was an uncomfortable silence. Memorial? Has Mr. Mitchell passed away? No, but his integrity has. Another pause. I'll need to speak with my supervisor about the naming. Of course, take your time. I hung up and smiled. David would hear about the scholarship eventually, and when he did, he'd understand the message. His name would be associated with ethical behavior he'd never demonstrated, but I still had one more thing to do. That afternoon, I drove to Goldman Sachs's Philadelphia office. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I had an appointment, sort of. I walked into Margaret Foster's office. She looked up from her desk, clearly surprised. Mrs. Richardson, I thought we were speaking by phone. I apologize for the surprise visit, but I have additional information I think you'll want to see. I handed her a folder containing all the emails between David and Victoria, along with a timeline of their affair and documentation of how the job offer had been discussed in personal emails rather than professional channels. What is this? Evidence that your hiring process may have been compromised. The relationship between David Mitchell and Victoria Chen wasn't just personal, it was transactional. She promised him the position in exchange for their relationship. Margaret flipped through the documents, her expression growing darker. Where did you get this? Does it matter? What matters is that it's accurate and verifiable. She closed the folder and looked at me with something like respect. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just thought you should know what kind of people you were dealing with. And Mr. Mitchell, are you trying to destroy his career permanently? I thought about that. Ms. Foster, David destroyed his own career when he decided to have an affair with his professor and use it to advance himself. I'm just making sure the truth is known. I see. He's brilliant. I'll give him that. But he has no integrity, no loyalty, and no respect for the people who helped him. Do you really want someone like that representing your clients? She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. No, she said finally, I don't. Then we understand each other. I left her office feeling like I'd won something important. David's reputation in Philadelphia finance was finished, but I still had one more move. That evening I called David's father. Robert, this is Emma. Emma? His voice was cold. I suppose you're calling to gloat. Actually, I'm calling to make an offer. What kind of offer? I'll pay for David's diploma myself, $15,000 transferred directly to Penn. There was a long pause. What's the catch? No catch. I'll pay the money. David gets his diploma and he can start rebuilding. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, I don't want to see him completely destroy himself. That's surprisingly generous. There's just one condition. I knew there was something. You have to call him and apologize for cutting him off. Tell him you were wrong to abandon him when he needed you. Absolutely not. Then he doesn't get the money. Emma, you don't understand. David has brought shame on our family. The scandal has been everywhere. My colleagues are asking questions. Your son made a mistake, a big one, but he's still your son. He's an adult. He made his choices. So did you. You chose your reputation over your child. That's not fair, isn't it? When David was humiliating me at dinner, you laughed. You encouraged him. You made it clear you thought I was beneath your family. But now that he's the one being humiliated, suddenly you care about dignity and respect. Robert was quiet for a long moment. The offer stands for 24 hours, I said. After that, David's on his own. I hung up before he could respond. 22 hours later, my phone rang. It was David, and he was crying. Emma, my dad just called. He apologized for everything. He said he was wrong to cut me off, and he's going to help me get back on track. That's good, David. He said you offered to pay for my diploma. Is that true? It is. Why? After everything I did, why would you help me? I thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated. Part of me still cared despite everything. Part of me was tired of carrying anger. And part of me knew that the most devastating revenge would be to show him grace he'd never shown me. Because that's what people do when they loved someone, I said finally. He cried harder. I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm so incredibly sorry. I know you are. Is there any chance could we maybe try again? I know I don't deserve it, but no, David, we're done. But that doesn't mean I want to see you fail. I don't understand you. I know that's part of the problem. The next morning, I transferred $15,000 to Penn. David's diploma would be released, and he could start looking for work again. It wouldn't be easy. The scandal had damaged his reputation, but he was smart and determined. He'd find a way. As for Victoria, I heard she'd been quietly asked to resign from the university her husband had filed for divorce and was getting primary custody of their daughter. Her academic career was effectively over. I felt no sympathy whatsoever. 6 months after that disastrous dinner at Laurent's, I was sitting in a different restaurant, a small bistro in Rittenhouse Square, having dinner with a man named Thomas. He was an architect I'd met at a friend's art show, and he had no idea who David was or what had happened. So you're divorced? He asked, smiling warmly. Officially, as of last month. Was it complicated? Most divorces are. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. I'd rather talk about you. He smiled at that, and I noticed how genuine it was. Nothing like David's calculated expressions. We were finishing dessert when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but something made me check it was from Ashley. Turn on Channel 6. David's on the news. I excused myself and stepped outside to call her. What's happening? Just watch. I found a bar nearby and asked them to change the channel. There was David on screen, standing outside a courthouse with microphones in his face. Mr. Mitchell, a reporter was saying, you've filed a defamation lawsuit against your ex-wife, Emma Richardson, claiming she maliciously destroyed your career and reputation. Can you tell us about that? David looked different. Thinner, harder, older. Emma Richardson systematically destroyed my life through lies and manipulation. She spread false information about me and Professor Chen. She sabotaged my education and career opportunities. And when I tried to rebuild, she made sure every door was closed to me. Are you seeking monetary damages? I'm seeking justice. What Emma did was wrong, and she needs to be held accountable. The reporter turned to the camera. Emma Richardson could not be reached for comment. We'll continue following this story as it develops. I walked back to the bistro in a daze. Thomas was waiting, looking concerned. Is everything okay? My ex-husband just sued me for defamation. What? It's complicated. I sat back down and tried to focus, but my mind was racing. David was rewriting history, making himself the victim, claiming I'd lied about everything. It was brilliant and completely dishonest. Do you need to go? Thomas asked. I looked at his kind face and made a decision. No, whatever David's doing now, it's not my problem anymore. But even as I said it, I knew I had one final move to make. The lawsuit was David's biggest mistake yet. Because now in court, with lawyers and judges and public records, the entire truth would come out, every email, every text, every lie he'd told. And this time, I had something David didn't, the complete truth. I called Patricia the next morning. Did you see the news? I saw it. What do you want to do? Fight it, every single claim. And Patricia? Yes? I want to countersue. For emotional distress, for the 4 years I spent supporting him, for everything. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. The trial took 8 months to reach court. 8 months of depositions and document requests and legal maneuvering, but when it finally happened, I was ready. David's lawyer presented his case first, painting me as a vindictive ex-wife who couldn't handle her husband's success. They claimed I'd fabricated evidence and spread lies out of jealousy. Then it was our turn. Patricia methodically presented every email, every text, every piece of documentation. She called witnesses who testified about the affair. She showed bank records, proving I'd funded David's education. She demonstrated how David had planned the entire humiliation at Laurent's. By the 3rd day, David's case was falling apart. By the 5th day, his lawyer was trying to negotiate a settlement. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before finding in my favor. Not only was David's defamation claim dismissed, but I was awarded damages for emotional distress and reimbursement for his education costs. After the verdict, I stood outside the courthouse giving a brief statement to reporters. The truth matters, I said simply. And today, the truth won. That evening, I met Thomas for dinner at our favorite place, the little bistro where we'd had our 3rd date. We'd been together for almost a year now, taking things slow, building something real. How does it feel, he asked, to have it finally over? Honestly, it feels quiet. He smiled. Good quiet or bad quiet? Good quiet, like I can finally hear myself think. And what are you thinking about? I looked at him, at his gentle eyes and genuine smile, at the man who'd never once made me feel small. I'm thinking about the future. Our future. Maybe, I smiled, if you're interested. Emma, I've been interested since the day we met. He reached across the table and took my hand. You're the strongest person I know. What you went through, how you handled it, it's incredible. I'm not sure incredible is the right word, maybe stubborn. Maybe both. 2 years later, Thomas and I got married in a small ceremony in Fairmount Park. Just family and close friends, simple vows and genuine joy. As I stood there watching him wait for me, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the pain, the revenge, the healing. All of it had led to this moment. David had been right about one thing that night at Laurent's. I had been carrying dead weight. But the dead weight wasn't me. It was him, and everything toxic he'd brought into my life. Now I was free. Free to love someone who actually loved me back. Free to build a life based on honesty instead of manipulation. As Thomas took my hand and we said our vows, I made a silent promise to myself I would never again settle for someone who didn't see my worth. I would never again sacrifice myself for someone who saw me as beneath them. The ceremony ended, and as we walked down the aisle together, my phone buzzed in my bouquet. For just a moment, I wondered if it was David trying to insert himself into my happiness one more time. But I didn't check. Whatever it was, whoever it was, it could wait. This moment belonged to me and Thomas, and no ghost from my past was going to take that away. Later that evening, at our small reception, Rachel pulled me aside. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret how things went down with David? The revenge, all of it?" I thought about that for a long moment, watching Thomas laugh with his family across the garden. "No," I said finally, "not for a second." "Really?" "Really. Every hard moment, every painful choice, every act of standing up for myself, it all led me here to this man, to this life, to this version of myself that I actually like." Rachel hugged me. "You've come so far." "We both have." As the evening wound down and our guests headed home, Thomas and I sat on the garden wall watching the sun set over the park. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Nothing," I said. And for the first time in years, that was actually true. Absolutely nothing. He laughed and kissed me, and I kissed him back, tasting the future on his lips. David had been wrong about so many things, but he'd been right about one. Independence was everything. The difference was, I'd found my independence not by tearing others down to build myself up, but by refusing to be torn down anymore, and that, I realized, made all the difference in the world. As we drove away from the reception toward our honeymoon, I glanced back one last time at the life I'd built, a life based on truth instead of lies, on respect instead of contempt, on love instead of convenience. David had wanted me to be small, to stay quiet, to accept his version of who I was. Instead, I'd shown him and everyone who laughed that night exactly who I really was. Not the mediocre wife with no career trajectory, not the woman who was holding him back, but a woman who knew her worth and refused to settle for less. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all.